Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhu Cha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Matrurupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Shakti Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Buddhi Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Lakshmi Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. So we are in the 18th chapter, and we are, what was it, verse 30 something?
33.
Verse 33. Ganesh, will you chant for us this evening?
Sure.
And if the connection gets hinky, Puneet's here, so we have a backup.
Yeah. So verse 33.
Yes. Chapter 18, verse 33. What page is it, Mark?
317, I think. Yeah, I got it.
I think that's it.
Okay. Okay.
Avyaptau tuchita tarhi katham sadhyet parichhadi chiter bahiryada chetyam astitat syat parichhadi. When not pervaded by consciousness, then how can division be proved or become valid? When the knowable object is outside consciousness, then there can be division.
So he's dealing with this idea, is the phenomenal world outside of consciousness or within it? And the doubt he's addressing here is, if the phenomenal world is outside consciousness, how can it even be known? Let me give you an example. Do you know if there are any dishes in my sink tonight? No, you do not know. because it's not in your field of awareness. It is unknowable unless consciousness illumines it. So this whole phenomenal world, all that is knowable, is in consciousness, ultimately pervaded by it. The end is consciousness itself, appearing as the world of name and form. Next verse.
Chite pahischetya siddhihi sarvatha nopapadyate to bahi sakatham siddhya chiti sambandhavarjitah. The proof of the knowable object outside consciousness is not at all possible. How can that which is outside be proved without connection with consciousness?
Yes. So the very fact that it is known proves that there's a knower to know it. And the opposite is also true. When the Shunyavadins posit ultimate reality is nothing, consciousness itself arises as a temporary event, absolutely unverifiable. So if you posit consciousness arose here to know the world, then nothing was there, and then consciousness rose here to know a phenomenal world. Who was there to know the gap? Unverifiable. So consciousness is everywhere illuminated. It is the ground of being, of the entire phenomenal world. Going on.
Sambandhopi naikadeshaha syad siddhasthatetarah tat sambandham shamatrasya bhanadanyanna siddhyati. Even that connection cannot be with a portion of the knowable object. Thus, the other portion cannot be proved. By reason of the appearance of the mere portion connected with that consciousness, the other portion does not become valid.
So the idea is we infer the knowable things, even though we don't perceive them, because I could know something. For example, I know Puneet is here in my living room. He got here somehow. He either rode his motorcycle or he drove his car. I have no way to verify that, though, without knowing it. That's just inference. But that's not verification. Next one.
Ato bahi padarthopi chiti nirmagna ishyatam evam cha sarvatmanaiva magnam chetyam api ishyatam. Therefore, let an external object also be regarded as immersed in consciousness. Thus also let even the knowable be regarded as completely immersed. Note, the second half of the verse refers to all knowables outside or in the mind, all of which are within consciousness alone.
So again, these kinds of arguments become easy to understand if we go to the dream state. The dream state is a microcosm of the macrocosmic reality. In the dream state, your one mind manifests as knower, knowing, and known. Even though there's a locus of perception I peep out from the dream body. And I have an ego. I'm identified with the dream body. And I see a world of name and form, which to the dreamer appears external. And I have dream thoughts and feelings, internal. Yet in fact, all of it is just imagination. Which is more me? The dream body that I experience in the dream, or the dream horse I see in my dream? You have to say either both are just fabrics of my mind, or I am none of it. It's just imagination. But I cannot say I am only the dream body and the dream horse is separate. This is no different. It's all in Brahman. Next verse.
Katham syantar vinirmagnam swaparichedakam bhavet chetyam evam vidham rama vicharaya suyuktitah. How can a thing which is immersed within consciousness itself become its divider? Rama, investigate through proper reasoning of the noble investigate through proper reasoning the noble of such nature.
So here he's saying, my experience is I, Jim, am sitting here. Puneet is sitting over there on my couch. Are we in fact separate and other? Are there individual little Purushas running around? No. Just like in the dream state, you have a dream body with its locus of perception and other dream people. All of them are in consciousness. The appearance of what looks like separate bodies, in fact, does not divide or separate consciousness. Does the glass in room space, in fact, divide space into glass space and room space? If so, when I move the glass, wait a minute, you got to take the space with you. No. Space pervades the glass. There is a relationless relationship. Space is not in the glass is in space. Self is not in you. Your equipment, your body, mind, intellect is in the self, which each of us experiences as I. The eternal subject. I am Atma Brahma. This self is another form of Krishna. Another form of Krishna. Did you fix it, or is Ganesh doing it?
Did we get?
Yeah,
Okay.
I kick him out.
All is Maya, all is bliss. Can you imagine what it must be like to live in a mind where that's the way you have fun. Very strange. All right, next verse.
Chiterantar bhasamanam pratibimbatmakam bhavet nabhavo nabhavoda rago bhava nabhavoda rago bhavo bhavan loke sudrishyate. What is shining within consciousness should be of the nature of a reflection. In the world, an object is not seen existing in the interior of another object.
So the idea is that the world exists in consciousness the same way a reflection exists in a mirror. It appears to be there, but it's really only the surface of the mirror itself appearing as an image. So if I go into the bathroom and look in the mirror, my face is showing. Puneet goes into the bathroom and looks into the mirror, his face is showing. The mirror has not undergone any change. So also this world arises in consciousness. And we have this relationless relationship. Consciousness is kutusta, still like a mountain. Whole world appears in it. Appears. Seen, but not real. Next one.
Hey, this is Daniel. Can you hear me?
I can, Daniel.
Okay. We were using Elena's computer and she got kicked out when the two other people were bombing the session. Is there some way to get her back in?
Okay. Puneet, is there a way to get them back in? What name are you using?
It was Lena Z. So it was Lena.
Maybe she can log out of her Zoom account and try joining again. Maybe because Ganesh kicked her out, like it won't allow her to join from her personal account. But if she's logged out, maybe it would work.
Okay. She'll try that.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, sorry, it was a bit hard. I don't know, they kept like changing things, probably.
What the bombers tend to do is they change their names to the names of the people already in the room. So it becomes very difficult.
I see.
They're smart.
Well, I'm not so sure about that.
So right now, her Zoom says unable to join this meeting. You were unable to rejoin this meeting because you were previously removed by the host. So is there a way to log out of Zoom?
I don't think it's gonna let you, right? Because I just literally just.
And is she at your place, Daniel?
No, we're at her apartment.
And so how are you online?
I'm using my phone.
That may be the only thing to do this time. I'm so sorry.
Can you try? What if you sign out?
You mean you want the host to log off?
No, sorry. I'm talking to Elena right now
Okay.
because that's what they said. They said to try to log out. Anyway, you don't need to hold up. I just thought if there was some way to get back in, but if that,
I'm sorry.
we'll try it on our side.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Daniel.
Okay. Hopefully we'll get in. We'll see you soon.
All right. Next verse, please.
Bhavana Syadhi Sankaryam Tatha Chet Rama Sarvatah Bahif Padarthaste Prokto Brahmamulo Hi Sarvatha Tadashayanam Bhavana Katham Syat Satyata Vada. Rama, if it is so, they would indeed be confused. Oh, wait.
I'm sorry, I had a hard time understanding you. Say it again, a little louder and a little slower.
I'm just trying to figure out if we actually finished the previous verse. I think Daniel might have started just as we were going to read the English.
Ah, okay.
What is shining within consciousness should be of the nature of a reflection. In the world, an object is not seen existing in the interior of another object.
Yes, so when you see the image in the mirror, there's no real object there. When you see the moon shining in the bowl of water, there's no real moon there. Likewise, when objects appear in consciousness, they are mithya, illusion, pratibimba, reflection, chaya, shadows, reflections, vaitatya, falseness. Next one.
Bhavanam syadhi sankaryam tatha ched Rama sarvatah bahif padarthaste prokto brahmamulo hi sarvatha tadashrayanam bhavanam katham syat satyatavada. Rama, if it is so, there would indeed be confused mixture of objects everywhere. The external object has indeed been explained to you as a source of delusion in every way. Say, how can there be a real nature for objects having that is external appearance as a substratum? No. External object referred to above is the unmanifest, explained in verses 59 and 60 of chapter 14.
Well, my take on it is this. So if Puneet went into the bathroom and there was a real Puneet in the mirror, then it comes out of the mirror, and which one goes home and spends the evening with Sangadia? Does she have two husbands then? There's no real object there. If in fact there were real objects in the mirrors, in the water, the world would be very confusing. All of this is Brahman. That's the point he's getting at. All is Maya, all is bliss. Next one.
Chitisvarupasvatmaiva tattadbhavatmana sada bhasate swachandya shaktya nadhikam vidyate kvachit. One's own self of the nature of pure consciousness shines through its power of freedom of will with the nature of different objects always. There is nothing more anywhere.
Yes. So he sums up. It is one's own self, which is Brahman, which shines as this phenomenal world. There's no otherness. Why do we call it Advaita Vedanta? Because it seems like two. I'm seeing stuff. It looks like two, but it's not two. Just appears that way. So what is the insight? What is the practice implying? Turn down your reactivity to the world. Even Zoom bombers are Brahman. It's all God, all perfect. Now, that doesn't mean that this piece of equipment is outside that manifest universe that's in Brahman. Act as you will. Next one.
Iti vakyam samakarnya punah papracha bhargavah bhagavan bhavata proktam durghatam pratibhati me shuddha chitir vichitraika bhasata ityasambhavat. Having heard these words, Bhargava asked again, Revered one, what has been explained by you appears to me impossible on account of the impossibility of the statement that the one pure consciousness shines as the various objects.
So the doubt here is, okay, I may be able to understand it as philosophy, but it sure isn't my experience. My experience is the objects are real. My loved ones are real. My enemies are real. That's his doubt. Let's see what the Tattriya says.
Daniel, were you trying to say something?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, is there a meeting passcode that I can use to log in? Because now it's asking me to enter a meeting passcode.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it.
I'll try to do that.
Okay, it is a long one, I think. I can send it to you over chat.
That's actually, I copied it out of the link and it's not working.
Oh, that's not working? Okay.
No. Did you lock out anyone new from joining the meeting?
No, I think it's probably because once you're basically, I don't know, for the session, or is that from this meeting?
Well, I logged into my Zoom account.
Maybe I should read this.
Oh, because I'm logged in here. Okay, we can try that. Yeah, I'll log off my phone first again. Try. All right, if that doesn't work, we'll catch you guys next week. Thanks.
Sorry.
Okay. Chitishchetyam iti dvedha vastu sarvairvibhavitam tatra chetyam chitabhasyam swaprabha chitirastute. Reality is known by all in two ways, as consciousness and the knowable object. There, the knowable object is illuminated by consciousness, and consciousness should be self-luminous.
So what he's talking about here is our direct experience is the world is known by me. We have, in essence, what we call actually the triple T. It's a triple factor, or we could say double factor. I know stuff. I see the table. I hear the traffic. I smell the fragrance. There's I plus stuff. All the stuff, the knowable objects, need me to be there to know them. They cannot be known without me. But when it comes to myself, I am known, I'm me. But I know me in a way completely different than the world. I do not see, hear, taste, touch, or smell myself. I don't emote myself. I don't think myself. Yet I know I am. How do you know you are? I don't know, I just know it. Who knows it? I do. What is the Pramana? What is the means of knowledge? What instrument do I use? Not my nose, not my fingers, not my ears. I don't know. The self is its own means of knowledge. It needs no exterior or additional means of knowledge. And that which is known is me, not as an object. I am the eternal subject, but I am not unknown. I'm me. So my self-existence is in another dimension than the phenomenal world. Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. That proves you exist. Try stop thinking and see if you disappear. You do not disappear when the thoughting stops. We call that state samadhi. You are self-evident, self-shining, self-effulgent. It is the self that knows the self. Now, listen very carefully. That knowledge you have always had. That's why we call it a perfect knowledge. It is not something to be gained or lost. Even the most miserable of creatures, even the greatest of fools, knows that he is or she is. But because of a lack of investigation, we do not clearly understand the profundity of that self-evidence, that self-shining, that self-knowing. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
यथा लोक भातमपि वस्तुतद् भिन्नमस्ति वै एवं चिताभासितं तु चेत्यमस्तु पृथग्विधम् चेत्यं चिदात्मकम् इति नानुभूतिं समारुहेत्. as even an object shining by light is indeed different from that light, so the knowable object on its part, illuminated by consciousness, should be of a different kind. The statement that the knowable object is of the nature of consciousness cannot attain to experience.
So read that second part again. It was a little obscure for me. Read the whole thing again for me.
As even an object shining by light is indeed different from that light, so the knowable object on its part, illuminated by consciousness, should be of a different kind. The statement that the knowable object is of the nature of consciousness cannot attain to experience.
Okay, so this is a doubt. The doubter says, if you have a flashlight, you shine it on a rock, the light is illuminating the rock. The light is different than the rock. Consciousness is that which shines on all the objects. So is the consciousness different than the objects? So in the beginning, we actually use this practice, this drishya viveka, this discrimination between the seer and the seen. We talk about discriminating between the self and the not self. But now what we're dealing with is, what is this not self? Well, we lied. There is no not self. Now let's see how the Tattva enters into this. Next one.
Athacha pragabhitam janakena mahatmana sankalpa varjanadeva nirvikalpam mano bhavet tadeva nirvikalpam syat ajnanam tadeva nirvikalpam syat jnanam samsara nashanam tadeva ह्यात्मनो रूपम् इत्युक्तं तत् कथं भवेत् आत्मानो हि मनः प्रोक्तं karanam jnana karmani. So also it was declared by the noble-minded Janaka at first, the mind can become nirvikalpa, or free from thought constructs, only by the renunciation of imagination. That alone can be the nirvikalpa knowledge, destroying the course of worldly life or transmigratory existence. That alone is the natural state of the self. How can that, declared thus, happen? For the mind is described as the instrument of the self in the action of knowing.
So we're dealing with this whole issue again. The mind cannot go there. The mind is an object of knowledge. The mind is not it. The self is always self-evident. What then is realization? Is the mind something other than awareness or not? Are the objects something other than awareness or not? Do you go into samadhi and that's the highest state, and then you lose the highest state when you come out of it? Oh, there's objects. That's messing me up. Let's see what happens next.
Mano yadyatmano nasyat visheshyeta jadat katham mano jadat visheshasyat atmano bhavanannanu. Venerable one, if the self does not have the mind, how can it be different from inert things? The mind should indeed be the characteristic difference of the self compared to inert objects.
Read it again for me, please.
Venerable one, if the self does not have the mind, how can it be different from inert things? The mind should indeed be the characteristic difference of the self compared to inert objects.
So let me cut to the chase in this. What we call mind is the awareness of phenomena. When the flow of mind happens, this thing called a mind seems to appear. Gaudapada uses the very famous example of the circle in the firebrand, the circle in the sparkler on Diwali or 4th of July. Once the point of the sparkler starts to move, this thing called a circle appears. So also, when thoughting starts to happen, this thing called a mind appears to exist. When I stop the movement of the sparkler, what happens to the circle? Gone. It was an optical illusion. Mind is pure awareness of phenomena. The phenomena are all just imagination, fancy, images. But the awareness that illumines them, it does not undergo a change. If I'm driving through the desert and I see an oasis, it appears, but it's not really there. And if the oasis appears as a small little pool or a big expansive lake, they are both just fancies, optical illusions. So is all this. Now, to cut to the chase, the thing to see is you cannot think a real thought. When we renounce the mind, that doesn't mean gripping the mind to some sort of state where no thought or perception happens. No. It means quit believing the mind. And what remains, the residual, is just being, just awareness. In it, in the now, the whole Leela takes place. Don't get too caught up in trying to understand the reasoning that our author is trying to do. He wants to give us a rationale to enter into practice. Keep thinning the mind and all this becomes clear. All becomes very simple. Next one.
Manasaiva hi bandhasya moksho vapyatmanasputam savikalpam mano bandho mokshasyat nirvikalpakam. For the bondage or liberation of the self can clearly arise through the mind alone. The mind with thought constructs is bondage, and the one without thought constructs is liberation. No, the mind as a chief cause of bondage and liberation is here equated with them in its two states respectively.
So both bondage and liberation occur to the mind. The self is ever free. The self never gets bound. What is my bondage? As the result of ignorance, the non-apprehension of my essential nature, I then attribute to the self the qualities of the not self. I think I'm my body, or the body plus the personality. And it gives rise to this phony sense of self, this chit-chaya. I think I'm a person. That personhood is dependent on first ignorance, and then all these egoistic ideas, the ahankara. If I renounce my attachment to phenomena, renounce any identification of a personal sense of self, with just a little bit of concentration, notice I. Then that shadow self falls. We see the substratum of the ego is something real, I. What is ignorance? I plus stupidity. Get rid of stupidity. Then, when the mind is in that quiet state, when the vimarsha, the deliberation, is gone, all that's left is the prakasha, the light. Then the subtle intellect goes, oh, I get it. No personal sense of self is real. I can't think a real thought. What my senses are perceiving is illusory. The only thing that's real with a capital R is I. So at the moment of realization, it's not, I was a person. I never was a person. I've always been Brahman. Just didn't know it. How could I have missed it? Next one.
Tat katham mana evatma karanam himana smritam nirvikalpasya samsiddha. Nirvikalpasya samsiddha apidvaitam tu shishyate. Then how is it that the mind, which is nirvikalpa, alone is the self? For mind is considered as an instrument of the self, even on the accomplishment of nirvikalpa, or the state free from thought constructs. Duality in the form of the self and the mind on its part is left remaining.
Yes. So here the doubt is the mind an instrument of the self? Does consciousness through the mind illumine the world? Well, it kind of does and it doesn't really. Your mind is not aware. You are awareness. Mind equals the awareness of vrittis, the awareness of thought flow, the awareness of vimarsha. Take the vrittis, the thought flow, the vimarsha, and remove it. And what's left is pure awareness. Call it whatever you want. You can call it mind with a capital M. Chit. Knowing. Shining as awareness itself. Words fall short. Next one.
अथापि लोके दृष्टोऽस्ति यस्य भ्रान्तिरसन् अथापि लोके दृष्टोऽस्ति यस्य भ्रान्तिरसन् हि सः न हि भ्रान्तिरसत्या स्यात् तद्वद्वैतं कथं भवेत्. Likewise, it is seen in the world that a thing of which there is a false idea or delusion is only unreal, but the false idea or delusion itself is not unreal. Then how can non-duality occur? Note, when a snake is mistakenly seen in a row, the snake is unreal. But the occurrence of the false idea is not unreal. Therefore, we cannot say that duality is absent.
So this is the doubt. Now, can we say that the absence of something is in fact a real thing? How many quarts of ignorance does it take for me not to know something? Ignorance is powerful. Or as Shankara says about Maya, we can't say that it exists. Can't say that it doesn't exist. But we can say it is powerful. And what is the antidote to ignorance? Knowing something. But when I don't know that it's a rope and I think it's a snake, is there such an object, such a thing, such a substance as ignorance? Let's see how the Tattriya answers this. Going on.
Arthakriyana Kvachitcha Drishta Satyena Vastuna Sarvam Hi Jagatam Vastu Sthitaram Arthakriya Karam. A purposeful action is not seen anywhere with an unreal object. Every object of the world is indeed firm in causing purposeful action.
So, if it's a real thing out there, it has purposeful action. Do we see ignorance riding down the street? Do I see ignorance swimming in the pool? Do I see ignorance loading boxes onto a cart? Do I see purposeful action being performed by ignorance? Going on.
Tadasatyam katham bruhi yato dvaitam prasidhyati sarvam cha bhranti vijnanam bhrantya bhranti bheda katham. Say, how can that be unreal from which non-duality is established? If everything is illusory knowledge, how can there be the difference of illusion and the absence of illusion?
So is my non-apprehension of the self a real thing? Is my knowledge of the self as a function of the knowing in the intellect, is that real? Or is all of this unreal? Is the self unknowable then? Now, from the standpoint of the absolute, both our bondage and our liberation are unreal. But yourself is already realized. You know that you are you. There was a great 20th century saint named Meher Baba. And he always used to say, everybody's already realized. Don't worry, be happy. Because the only real knowledge is the self-evidence of I. But it's our illusory human mind that suffers. So in this vyavahara, this world of transactions, knowing who we are, direct experience is of value. Going on.
Bhranti sarvasamavapi katham syad bruhi me guru sandeha esha chirato hridi me parivartate. Revered Guru, tell me also how the false notion can be the same for everybody. This doubt revolves in my mind for a long time.
So how is it that everybody seems to not know who they are? And everybody has the false notion that the phenomenal world is substantive and real. How did that happen? Very good doubt. Let's see how the Lord answers, how the Tattva answers it.
Ityevam prashtama karnya dattatreya samastavit sadhu prashna prahishtatma pravuktam upachakrame. Thus, having heard this question, the all-knowing Dattatreya, with his mind delighted by the good question, began to explain.
Going on.
Rama sadhu tvaya prishtam prokta prayamidam punah yavanna manasastoshta tavat bhuyo vishodhayet. Rama, you have questioned well. This has been generally explained. Again, as long as there is no satisfaction of the mind, so long one should repeatedly free it from doubts.
So, how much sadhana do I need to do? You keep doing sadhana. You keep asking questions until the mind ceases to throw up doubt. Swamiji thundered, the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. And if it's a burning question and you don't have an answer, your mind will hang on to it. We keep dealing with the doubt till your mind quits doubting. Eventually, the shishya gets, all my doubts are just next verse.
Sorry. Rama sadhu. Okay. Gurur vapi katham bruyat aprashtastanma nogatam praninam hi budhi bheda praninam hi buddhi bheda takka prithag avasthitah. How can even a guru speak about what is in his mind unasked on account of the difference in the understanding of living beings? Reasoning stands differently for the clearance of doubts.
Yes, so students have different questions depending on the subtlety or grossness of their minds. So the guru has to answer the question at the level of the student. This is why I say I make no claim to consistency. Well, Jim, what you said last night, it's totally different than what you're saying tonight. Uh-huh. Depends on the grossness or subtlety of the student, how the guru answers the question. Next one.
Gurur vapi katham bruyat aprishtva swasvabhamitam aprishtva swasvabhimatam kasandeha vimuchyate prashturvidya hi sudrida prashno bijam nirupane aprashturnaiva vidya syat prishtva vidya tato guram. Without asking for what is desired by oneself, who is freed from doubt? The knowledge of the one who questions is indeed firm. The question is the cause in ascertaining it. Knowledge cannot arise in one who does not question. Therefore, let one know by questioning the Guru.
Yes. So Swamiji used to say the guru is like a bell. You get nothing out of it until you bang it with your questions. That is part of the tradition. Vigorous questioning of the guru. Part of it. Up to a certain point. If your doubts are resolved, you can quit ask him questions. Next one.
Chitirekaiv vaichintya bhasata iti sambhavet ekarupo yatha darshah pratibimbadanekadha. The one consciousness alone shines through diversity or manifoldness. This can happen as a mirror having one form appears variously on account of reflections in it.
Yes, so if the mirror has imperfections, it doesn't reflect accurately. You go to a fun house and one mirror makes you look very tall, another mirror makes you look like globes. So not only does a well-crafted mirror have different objects in it, the same object reflected in mirrors with distortions will appear differently. So also, if the student's mind is a beginner, the kinds of answers may be very different than for a student whose mind's quite subtle, who's beginning to get rooted in the self. Next one.
Pashya swapna vikalpado mana ekam hi kevalam drishtradarshana drishyatma vaichinthyena vibhati he evam shuddhaiva sa samvid vichitrakara bhasini chitischetyamiti tvedha swapnepi hi vibhasate. See, in dreams, fancies, and the like, the one mind alone shines with variety, consisting of the seer, the seeing, and the seen. Thus, that pure consciousness alone is shining with various forms. Even in a dream, it shines in two ways, as consciousness and the perceived object. Note, if that duality in a dream is false, why should it not be so in the waking state? This is the implied question.
Yes. So again, we're going back to this idea. You are the God of your dream. If you thoroughly understand the dream state, you will understand the universe. Going on.
Alokamantarat bandho bhavam janati vainanu andhasya bhasamanam cha rupam bhati spritau kila naivam chitera bhane kim kada kutra vibhasate. Does not a blind man indeed know an object without light by the sense of touch and the like? For a blind man, a visible object not shining or not being perceived due to his blindness indeed shines in his remembrance, but it is not so in the absence of consciousness. When consciousness does not shine, what is it that shines, when, and where?
Again, just coming back to this point that consciousness cannot be denied or refuted or negated. It's simple. It's myself. Ganesh, how many more verses in this chapter? There's quite a few, aren't there?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Okay, we'll end here tonight. I am so sorry that we had the bombers, but keep them in your prayers. They need light. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om Tat Sat. Thank you all.